Inside every surrogacy journey is a woman who chooses to carry hope for someone else. But what is the experience really like? Emotionally, personally, mentally? Welcome back to Talk with Tonya, powered by PECGNA program. In this episode, our surrogacy expert Tonya Canaday speaks with a surrogate on the reality of her journey.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much for joining Talk with Tonya, powered by PECGNA. How are you today?
I'm doing really good. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, Amanda, I'm dying to hear. Tell me about your story.
So, I was able to be a surrogate twice, fortunately, and was able to help two families. And I just always felt, a calling to help others. And I didn't know exactly how I could help others, but it was important to me. And as I got, as you get older, and I had my kids somewhat younger, and I had easy pregnancies, and I started hearing, things about infertility issues or just, like men wanting to have babies. And I just felt this calling to help other families because I was able to have my family. Me and my husband were done having kids. So I really felt a calling to surrogacy and to be able to help give others the gift that I got with my children.
So tell me what kind of family and just a little bit about your journey with your first surrogacy.
With my first, it was an intended father. And I was a little nervous at first just because obviously going into it, being new to everything, kind of learning everything. You try to prepare yourself ahead of time with learning things, but obviously there's going to be things that come up that you weren't, prepared for, or you can't study and learn everything at once. So it was a wonderful journey. He was just amazing. He was so involved, which made it more comforting. From just messaging me how I felt to what I was craving, the whole journey super special because he cared so much. He wanted to know all the details. He wanted, pictures. He was just truly a gem and never made me feel, uncomfortable or, he always just was so caring about how I was doing and how I felt, and sent us so many Tim Tam cookies. Australia, which I'm using too. My kids loved that. So we had a really special relationship, and we still have that same, relationship even now.
So wonderful. So the first one was a single man from Australia, and lots of Tim Tams, and that's amazing. And the second family, tell me about them.
That was two dads, and they were also international. So they were from Guadeloupe. So not quite the time difference that I had with my first, with Australia being on the other side of the world. But yes, so that was my second journey. And people always say, you had all dads when you did surrogacy. It wasn't that I necessarily planned for it that way. But I really connected with, both families, and I just felt they were the right fit for me for my journeys.
That's incredible. You are definitely an angel. That's amazing that you would do that for them.
Yeah.
So can you tell me, Amanda, what inspired you to be a surrogate? You said you were always wanted to help, but it had to be a little bit more than that. Can you give me more?
Yeah, I actually had offered to a friend one time after having multiple fertility issues. So I had offered to hey, if you ever decide to go this route, just as a support, and I could be there. And then she didn't actually need it, so it kind of stopped thinking about surrogacy for a little bit. And then a friend of mine, because I'm very involved in the sports community where we live, and I was at a football game for my sons, and one of the other parents, I noticed her kind of putting some stuff on Facebook earlier in the month, and I started asking her about it. And that's when she brought up surrogacy and how she was currently carrying twins. So I started kind of picking her brain a little bit and talking to her about it, which, you know, brought me even more to kind of reaching out to the agency and finding out more information. And that's how I initially, I guess, got started with it, actually pursuing a journey. But, you know, like I said, I'd always felt like I had like good pregnancies, good deliveries. I felt like, you know, I would be a good fit. I'm healthy. You know, I'm active. So I just felt like a calling to it, essentially, because I felt like I had the ability to do it. So, you know, why not bless others with a family?
That's incredible. Really, really incredible. So, one of the biggest misconceptions that comes out of surrogacy is that the surrogate will become emotionally attached and want to keep their baby. Can you tell me about the emotions of building up to the delivery, how you felt at the delivery, and then also how did you feel after? Because people who are new to this would think that you would be longing and feeling sad for the baby. So can you explain the before, the during, and the after to me?
Yes, actually, this is probably the question that I got the most, and I continue to get even now after when I bring up surrogacy, you know, in conversation, or people know that I've done it. So I think it's a great question. So I will say that it's a reasonable question, but in reality, I think the screening and everything you do ahead of time really makes you fully understand the situation, and that we're not actually carrying our own babies. They're not using any part of it genetically related to me or to a surrogate, which also really helps, I think, also make that separation. And I don't think everybody fully understands that. So sometimes when I do get the question, I feel as though they don't understand that my genetics were not used. So that's one thing I usually lead with. But I will say that you feel a connection in a sense, but it's different than your own child. It almost, to me, it felt like how I'd feel to my brother or sister's kids. Like I am like an aunt, you know what I mean? Like you totally feel like a connection. You want to love and protect this child because you're carrying them. You know, you were entrusted to carry this child. So it's an important connection, but it's different. I was just so excited both journeys, carrying the baby. The emotional side of it was more an excitement for my intended fathers, you know, like knowing and looking forward to seeing their faces when, you know, the babies were delivered, and that excitement of like, oh my gosh, I have my baby. Especially with Callum, it was his first child, and he was so excited. And I did the build up to being able to do that for him and carry that, you know, baby for him, and his excitement and the look on his face when he got to hold her was like nothing like anything you can experience, you know, one of the top experiences of my life. So it wasn't an emotional attachment as in like this is my child, this, you know, I can't give this baby. It was more of like the excitement of knowing that you are helping create a family, and the excitement of seeing those parents hold their child for the first time is what, you know, the emotion that I had. And you know, from talking to other surrogates, I feel like that's pretty, you know, reciprocated across the board. It's just, you're so excited for them. And then even after, it's a little strange at first because you're going home, your body is, you know, recovering, but you're not, it's actually kind of nice because you don't have a child to take care of or wake up, you know, every couple hours with. I was able to easily, recover both times. Yeah, I was able to focus on myself, take care of myself. And mentally, I was just still so excited to receive pictures and updates of how the baby was doing. And it never felt like a detachment in any sense. It was more of just the excitement of knowing what I was able to help do.
That's amazing. That is really amazing. I spoke to Callum, which is the single father that you carried for the first time. I spoke to Callum just a week or so ago, and we're going to put him on talk with Tonya as well, so that the people who are watching can see both sides of it. And maybe later we could do an interview with the two of you and show the little Lara that you guys created. So she's so cute. Oh my gosh. So, yeah, you hear people who don't understand surrogacy say that surrogates feel like babies were torn out of their arms and that their hearts are broken and they feel a missing piece. You have a strong stance that that's not true at all.
Not in any, no, not at all. I didn't feel that. You just, like I said, you're just the excitement of the buildup of the excitement for the parents is really what it's all about. You know, that's why I wanted to become a surrogate, and that's what it feels like. It feels like you gained a niece or a nephew, and this child that, you know, you always will have a special connection with because you were so lucky to carry them. But it's not in any sense like as if my child is being pulled from me by any means.
And that's beautiful that you say you were so lucky to carry them, because that is the opposite of how people who don't understand surrogacy thinks that you would feel. So that's a really beautiful way to explain that. You mentioned as well in the conversation that the evaluations really helped to prepare you. Can you talk about your evaluation a little bit? I think some surrogates are afraid that it's a judgment, that they will be judged, or that they would maybe not be chosen because of something emotional or fears. Can you kind of talk about how that evaluation felt for you and things that happened in it that made you feel safe to move forward?
Yeah, I think sometimes I can see why some people can be intimidated just because they don't know what to expect. They don't know what they're going to be asked. I think, you know, really being able to do your research and even talk to other people who've experienced it and gone through it before is helpful. In the evaluations, I think it's also important to be very honest, because it's normal to have feelings and emotions, and it's not a bad thing that you know, had feelings and emotions, and to be able to like open up and talk about it is a good thing, because, you know, everybody kind of handles things differently. I think, you know, going through and talking about making sure, you know, they were talk to me about like, are you done having your family? And, you know, all these key things that I think are super important for people to think about, because, you know, you don't always know, you know, what can happen in deliveries and things like that. So I think the fact that surrogacy is so regulated and so thorough, and they go through all those things to make sure that you yourself are comfortable doing this, and knowing that it is, you know, you're still carrying a baby. It still has its risks and things like that. And going through all that and making sure you fully understand is super important, because it's really protecting both sides of the journey, us as surrogates, and also, you know, the intended parents fully understanding and going through the process and understanding how it works. So I just remember feeling like, okay, well, they're really looking out for me as well, because they're making sure that, you know, I understand that by carrying, it could prevent me from possibly having another child and those kinds of things. So making sure I fully understood everything on my side of it, so that I could make, you know, that informed decision to carry was helpful, and I think super important.
Very good. So you felt well informed, and you felt like you got to make the decision. Somebody wasn't forcing you or making you making the decision for you.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. Another misconception people have is that an intended parent is going to try to control your life, that you won't get to make your own decisions. Can you talk to me about boundaries? Maybe some moments where the boundaries were slightly overstepped and you had to pull them back? Or what were your fears going into it about boundaries from the intended parent?
I had been on a bunch of different Facebook groups, and you hear different things where people had to kind of like say, hey, there are times where I say, hey, you just have to kind of, trust that I'm doing things correctly. I think in general, it takes a lot of trust from the intended parents. I'm sure this part of it is harder for them because they chose you, and it's still like they're are trusting you to, hold this gift for them and do the right thing. So I think it's harder on their side, but I can say that in my journeys, I never really felt pressure. There were days where I remember just feeling kind of exhausted and not in the mood for, like small talk back and forth. So I may have just kind of tried to shut the conversation down just because I was like exhausted, or I just didn't have the energy for it. But I never was in a situation where I felt as if like it didn't feel intrusive or asking too much. Like I never felt like I couldn't, eat what I wanted to eat, or, make appointments when I wanted to make them. I do think that with international journeys, you have a little bit more flexibility with like when you make appointments and things. I do know that sometimes intended parents, obviously, if they want to join or want to like FaceTime in, sometimes that they might ask, could you, move it in this time period and things like that. Most of the time, I know like Callum used to FaceTime in after the doctor would check me. So it was never like intrusive with my side of things, but it would allow for him to ask any questions that he might have for the doctor with any like upcoming things or the growth of the baby, which I thought was really nice, because then it didn't put the pressure on me to try to like remember every little thing the doctor said, or have to come up with all these questions, and I don't want to miss anything. So I always found that to be more like helpful and supportive with him being able to jump in on those Zoom calls and talk to the doctor. So I personally never experienced anything like that, where I felt, overwhelmed or kind of overstepping boundaries. But, I'm sure there are times when, that obviously happens, where it's a very intimate experience. It's a very personal experience. So I can imagine that it can sometimes be that little cross between like, oh gosh, am I doing everything right? Are they judging me? Or like, eating the right things? Are they doing the right things? But I think personally, I try to over communicate things too, just to keep the trust and keep the like, hey, here's a picture. Hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. And just try to, be super communicative, just to hopefully alleviate any fears that, either of the intended parents might have had during my journeys.
Very nice. So that purposely segue into a good question. So it sounds like you had really open communication with Callum, and I don't know if you had the same open communication with your second family, but can you talk to me about open communication and your relationship with the intended parents? Were there any moments that things got kind of weird and you had to work through stuff?
I think towards the, this reminds me, I totally forgot about this. Like towards the end of me and Callum's journey, I was really nervous to tell him that I didn't think I was going to be able to do the pumping. I remember
breast pumping for the breast milk. Okay.
Yeah. I coach, and the three boys were very active in sports right after I had Laura. So there was a lot going on. And I started to feel like anxious about it. So we actually, the agency kind of helped through that. So that was the one time I did have to ask for some support. And it wasn't because I didn't feel comfortable talking to him, because at that point I just was really afraid to hurt his feelings. Right. And I knew he would be understanding, because that's just who he was. And I knew he was going to be like, okay, totally fine with it. But I just felt it was more me feeling so guilty, because I knew it was something he really wanted. And then after I kind of processed and kind of talked about it, we actually talked about it together after. And I agreed to do beginning 2 weeks with the
colostrum.
Because I definitely was like, okay, yeah, that's super important for her. And I was okay with the few weeks. It was just like long term. I knew it wasn't something that would be cohesive with like my family and everything going on. So it ended up being totally fine. But that is a good example, I feel, to kind of where, you know, I was all for it at first, but then once the time got a little bit closer, I was like, I don't know if this is gonna be, you know. But he did make it easy. He was so supportive, and you know, the whole journey, he really was. It never felt like, oh, is he only asking because of the, you know, the baby? It just really felt like he cared. Like he genuinely wanted to make sure I was okay and that I was comfortable, and did I need anything? Like he was the best.
That's incredible. And you're really wise to pull in your support system. Your support system can be the agency. Your support system can be the psychological company that helped you. So somebody like PECGNA, you can do a group meeting, because often the relationship is by your own emotions. You're afraid of their reaction, which typically isn't their reaction, but because you're anxious of disappointing and things like that, bringing in those specialists to help bridge that gap and make everybody feel really comfortable. Because even though there has never been a conflict, to have that extra support is humongous. So that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, it really is so important. Like a support system in general is important during surrogacy, for all parties, because you just sometimes you just need somebody to talk to, and that's absolutely right. You know, not being afraid to reach out to those sources when needed is so important.
So speaking of your support system, your husband, your children, your parents, your friends, how did they feel about you being a surrogate, and how did they support you as your support system?
Everybody was super supportive, actually. Like at first, I remember like my aunts and some of other family members who are a little bit older, who hadn't really heard a lot about surrogacy. It was more, I think they were more curious than anything, but everybody was super supportive. Like I didn't have anybody in my corner that wasn't. My husband especially, you know, there was times, especially in that third trimester, where you're just like, I'm tired. I don't want to get up. I remember one time I was like, I started crying, and he was like, why are you crying? And I was like, I'm hungry. He's like, then eat. I was like, but I don't want to get up. And, you know, he went and made me some food. So there's always, you know, it's just,
So
you know,
kind.
in general. But another funny thing with my support system is I've always coached boys. I have 3 boys. And it was kind of neat to be able to share my surrogacy experience with, you know, these boys, because they didn't fully understand everything. And some of their parents, you know, they were like, so you're having a baby, but it's not with Coach George? And like, no. And I explain surrogacy to them. And then, you know, they would ask their parents things, and the parents would, you know, say they're so curious. It's just really cool that, you know, these teenage boys get to kind of learn about it and understand like a different side of things that otherwise they probably wouldn't, you know, even hear about or know. So
that's incredible.
of people from coaching and things in the area. So nice to also have, you know, family support and stuff like that from them.
Yeah, I could just imagine the look on those teenage boys' faces. You're doing what?
What?
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So naturally with pregnancy, your hormones change and your emotions change. You mentioned crying just because you were hungry. Tell me how you navigated that. So like your husband made you food that day. Were there other moments, like the first trimester, you're usually so exhausted and sometimes nauseated. You get a little freebie in the middle often, and then at the end your feet are swollen and your back hurts and all of that. Plus all of the hormonal changes after delivering the baby. What kind of tools did you use to get through all of those changes?
So one of my biggest tools is actually exercise. So I rely heavily on, and even when I'm not pregnant, exercise is a big part of my like mental health, and just my functioning with playing Division I basketball and just being in sports my whole life. Um, that is like one of my releases, is just being able to, you know, during the pregnancy with Laura, I had gotten a Peloton and I rode my Peloton a lot. And that really helped me with, my hormonal changes, just my mental health, feeling good. Because even though you're not carrying your own baby, you still experience all the same symptoms you would during pregnancy. I actually had worse nausea the first trimester with Laura than I didn't have any with my two boys prior. So I was like, I don't know if it's because she's a girl or if I'm a little bit older, or what it was, but I did experience a lot of nausea. And same thing, my husband was definitely my rock during that. He helped a lot. My boys helped. Callum was a huge support too. Like, I shared things with him, and I did end up having to get on some extra medication to help with the nausea, and he was fully supportive of that as well. Me taking what I needed to take in order to be able to feel good. So I did. I didn't keep things in. I made sure to tell, to ask for support from the clinic when I had the nausea started early on. And that was helpful as well. So I did reach out to my resources and make sure that, I was like, okay, I need something to help me. I need to be able to function. So, but yeah, you have all the normal aches and pains and, having to get up at the end every, hour to go to the bathroom. So yeah, that support system and leaning on people when you need them, when things come up, and, not just keeping it to yourself is so important.
That's really great advice because, I've worked in the industry for 18 years, and I find that surrogates tend to be really independent women who are used to taking care of everything on their own. So reminding women to use your voice, and it's okay to say, I need this, please help me, because otherwise you don't get what you need and you feel frustrated. So I think that's a key to making a surrogacy journey more fulfilling for the surrogate, is to just kindly speak what you need, because we can't read your mind to know that you're hungry and you would love it if somebody just made you a sandwich.
For sure.
Very, very good. So looking back on your journey, was there anything that you wish would have been different on either journey?
It's
a surprise question. Sorry.
I did deliver earlier with my second one, and obviously that was outside of my control. But I wish I could, change that, because it was very emotional. I had to be in the hospital for a couple weeks because we were trying to keep him in a little bit longer and make sure, everything was developing good, and, make sure I had got some extra medications and stuff for him. And although, everything ended up being good and he was healthy and as can be, and he's doing great and thriving, I would say that would be the only thing that I wish was different. But it's good to know that things do happen. And, when those things do happen, those are things too that are important to kind of think through and ask for help when needed too, because it can be, things do come up that are hard, and having that, again, going back to the support when those things do happen, because you can't fully prepare for them. Being able to have people to jump in to help with your kids, and have, my husband, I talk about him again because he did a lot. He jumped in when I was in the hospital for those couple weeks, and He was filling all the gaps. He even stayed there with me a few nights because I was like, I just need you. So, you know, and the dads got there as soon as they could as well. And they were, you know, they had already had another son as well. So their hands were full. But you know, they did try to help where they could help as well.
That's amazing.
So that's the one thing, I guess. But, you know, again, it was outside of my control. There was nothing I could have done about it.
It really truly speaks to your heart. The one thing that you would change is the one thing you have no control of, that you really wanted to bring a healthy baby into the world, which I think is a lot of surrogates' biggest fears, is disappointing the intended parents. And intended parents often don't realize that. They don't realize that a surrogate has a lot of pressure to just do the very best they can do and not disappoint. So that is really incredible. If you were to give a woman advice, or an intended parent advice, or both, that are considering this process, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to really just make sure they understand each part of it, and to, you know, to be patient. It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight, and there's a reason why there's steps, and there's a reason why, you know, certain things have to be done in order to progress. And those steps are so important to protect everybody, to make sure that you're getting, you know, matched with somebody who's, you know, a good match for you. I think that sometimes I see, like in the groups, that people are trying to rush surrogacy, and I just don't think that it's something that should be rushed. So my biggest advice would just be to be patient, make sure you fully understand everything, you know, take each step of the process seriously, and then just try to be sympathetic to both sides, you know, like you just said, a lot of surrogates really just, they feel a lot of emotions, and they feel guilty on top of it. So they might be the one experiencing, you know, the failed transfer, and they have the sadness of the failed transfer, but also of it not working, and feeling like maybe it's something I did, when in reality they did everything they were supposed to do. So, and then same thing from the intended parent side, like, you know, they feel the emotions of that as well, because they want it to happen. But they also have the financial side of it. So it's very, it's just understanding that both sides most of the time are very, you know, committed, and just kind of understanding each other's perspectives, and, you know, the way you word things and the way you say things can make things more emotional for one or the other. So just being kind of open and aware of that, and kind of taking your time in the process, and making sure everything's done correctly.
That's such good advice. Slow down, listen to the experts, do the steps correctly, and have open communication with the intended parents and the surrogate. And so that way the journey will be the best possible. In another interview, there was an intended father that was saying, you know, it was one of the most emotional things that he's ever gone through was a failed transfer, because everybody thinks of it like a math problem. 1 + 1 always equals 2, but that is not true when we're dealing with medicine. There will always be something unexpected that comes up. Even if it doesn't turn out bad, it just turns out that it's a delay or a slight fear or something. This is medicine, and we can, as humans, control as much as we can, but the bottom line is we don't have a lot of control of some of it, but doing everything we can to prepare in advance is going to make the whole process better. So last question, Amanda. Do you feel like surrogacy is something that you're going to regret 10 years from now, or do you feel like it's one of your shining stars of your life?
Oh, I will never, ever regret surrogacy. Anytime I get to talk about it, I talk about it. I love that I was able to do this. I love watching both of those, you know, kids grow up and seeing pictures. Like, I love seeing the families. It's, you know, even when me and George go on vacation, it ends up coming up in conversation when you're just chatting, meeting new people. And it's like my favorite thing to talk about, because it's an experience that not a lot of people get to experience. And it's so special that I just feel like it needs to be shared. So I try to share and teach about surrogacy and really what surrogacy is, because I do think there's a lot of misconceptions, as much as I can. I find it to be almost like an official calling now that I've done it. So no, to answer your question, I'll never ever regret being a surrogate. And even when I'm older, I'll continue to talk about it, because one, yes, it was one of my shining moments, special moments, but also just to kind of really teach what it is and make understand the process and just the experience I had.
That's incredible. You truly are an angel. I didn't get to meet your second intended parents, but I was just in Australia a few weeks ago and I got to cuddle sweet Lara, and she's just the healthiest, most vivacious little angel in the world. And that's partly because of you. So you helped her start, and now it's up to Callum to cross the finish line with that little one.
She's tough as nails too. Like I love how active and fearless she is.
She's fearless. And so much of that has to do with that unconditional love from a daddy that is so focused on the baby. Single fathers, sometimes people will pause. Can they handle it? And this single father is a rock star. It's incredible.
Yeah, he's absolutely killing it. He's doing such a good job.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Amanda, thank you again so much.
Of course.